everybody, Paul from Net Audio here, and I'm here with Kevin Gentry. He's on that side over there. I know Kevin from the Dodge Ram Audio Group, and so we just became friends and through honestly kind of making fun of each other through the Facebook group. But found out we have a lot in common, but we also have a lot of differences, and so we thought it would eventually, a couple years later, decided it would be worthwhile to make a podcast. So here we are with Signal and Noise to kind of clarify some of the myths, I guess, some of the common questions, common topics that I deal with daily with our customers, but also what conversations we see come up in the Facebook group, in the Ram 5th Gen Ram Audio Facebook group.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. If I hear, but just, it's like we've said in previous posts or previous videos, it's, you join a vehicle specific group and you have your hot questions that come up all the time. What tire size can I run with this lift, or what oil should I change, how often, or, why do I have water coming out of my back window? It's your super common questions. So for an audio group, we see a lot of topics come up. What I wanted to talk about, because I have this conversation so very often, either through email or through phone calls and stuff with people, is active EQ. A lot of customers don't even know what active EQ is, but there's so much that's built into factory amplifiers other than just power. When a customer thinks of an amplifier, they think signal in, signal out. They think of it more like a megaphone, instead of it doing all the crazy wizardry and stuff that it does. And the factory system is absolutely not. It has a whole bunch of EQ, whole bunch of time delay and crossovers, limiting frequency ranges, all this fancy crap that we deal with daily. But it's also stuff that we don't have the tools for. When it comes to having active equalization, there's nothing that we have access to on the aftermarket side as far as processors go that I know of. Years and years and years ago, actually still currently. So have you've been in the industry for what, 15 years?
Yeah, 15ish years, yeah.
Roughly. I'm sure you've used Alpine head units at some point.
At some point, yeah. It's been a while.
So, yeah. Well, I know you used to sell them back in the day at the Red Box, but they, if you go inside the system settings on the Alpines, you have subwoofer system 1 and subwoofer system 2.
Yep.
So subwoofer system 1 is a typical RCA output where it's a linear increase in RCA volume as you go up in volume. So you turn the volume up and the RCA output goes up, together, meaning the front and the rear and the sub are all doing the same thing.
Yep, exactly.
Subwoofer system 2, whenever we started selling Alpine, I was like, what the heck is this? And I actually read the manual, these little things that come with paper and they tell you all this stuff.
Yeah.
What it is active EQ. And the way that they put it is kind of backwards from the way that I put it, but it's the truth, where as you turn the volume down, so the volume for the RCA is coming down, 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 but then it kind of slows down. Yeah, so it's not just a straight down, it kind of curves down. So that way, as you get to lower volume, you still have bass.
Preserving. Yeah, you're preserving your bass.
Yep. Yeah, so that way it still sounds full and it doesn't sound tinny. You don't just hear the vocals and that low volume. You're a sound quality competitor.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm assuming you know what a good car sounds like and that you have your car sounding good. You got trophies that prove all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I got some shiny trophies out of it, so not doing too bad.
Yeah. So in my experience and my feedback generally from customers, when you come in and you drop a bunch of money for an actual like RTA tuned sound quality comp, where you have the subwoofer volume and it's still flat and everything, at lower volume, do you have a whole lot of bass?
Normally not. So in the case of sound quality, specifically, like we don't have a lot of bass to begin with. What we care about is that we can hear evenly across the entire spectrum, right? But at lower volumes, it's still important. Yeah. So that linear relationship you're talking about doesn't always necessarily work in sound quality either.
Right. And so that's what the active equalization is doing.
Yeah.
In our industry, again, I know you've used audio control devices.
Yeah,
and they have Acubase, and a lot of people see the Acubase and they don't understand it. It's like we've had this in our industry now in these factory vehicles for probably 20 plus years, having the active equalization. And the way I always hear it from consumers, but also from a lot of stereo shops, a lot of professionals, is they're taking away my bass as I go up in volume.
Yeah.
And that's not always true. So it, to me, it's kind of like a glass half full, glass half empty type of topic where, you know, I don't see it that way, but you can also put a microphone in a car and you can see that.
Yeah, I think they're talking about bass roll off, right? Like there's almost an assumption of bass roll off as you go up, it starts to taper off instead of linear the entire time.
Correct.
So I mean,
and roll off is absolutely a way that I hear a lot of people talk about it is roll off.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we've got, we're trying something new here. All right, so of course now it's not working. All right, so we have a video on our YouTube channel, and we're going to play. It's only 3 minutes long, so we're going to play the clip. Kind of have a Mystery Science Theater 3000 situation here to discuss in the video, just so we can show you what it's doing. So what we have here is a 2021 Ram 1500 with Harman Kardon. It's limited. We have the EQ set flat. We have the surround function off. We have the road noise volume thingy turned off. So everything is as true and flat as an audio signal as we can get from the factory. We are playing pink noise and using our audio control DM RTA so you can see what it is doing. A couple things. RTA is a real-time analyzer, which is just a microphone that lets us see what is happening in real time. Pink noise is what we're playing, and you're going to hear it. It sounds like static. It is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, all played at the same intensity. So it gives us a flat bass of what is coming out of the speakers, and the RTA allows us to see that. So what it's putting out is consistent. What changes are being picked up are being done through the tuning and processing of the factory amplifier. So you can see here we have 25 hertz up to. And I'm going to pause this real quick. Kevin has not seen this video yet, so he does not know what the RTA is showing on the factory system. So, and I did that on purpose because I want to see, you know, his response, seeing what this is doing. And I didn't say it. So Austin's in the car on the passenger seat. We have the microphone on the driver's headrest.
Okay.
So I'm telling Austin to turn up and turn down.
Got it.
20,000 hertz. So this is our low frequency range that we're looking at. And right now you can see me talking, but with me not talking, this is still super bumped, and we're at volume 13, 12 on the radio. Just turn it up a little bit so they can hear the static. Okay, so that's what pink noise it is we're doing. So put it back to 13. And you can see we have a pretty fat little hump down here. This is your bass range. So 20 to 80, 100, 125 hertz range is where most people consider bass. So turn it up. We're at 13. Let's go to 20. So we're at 20. This stuff hasn't even changed that much yet. It is still boosting all this bottom end and all this mid range. This is still what's coming in so super, super hot. So, and we're getting like big spikes down in like the 30 to 40 hertz range. So turn it up to 25. So now we're getting more volume across the lows, across the mid-range and the highs. But look, we're still sitting here spiking all up on this deeper bass stuff. So all your lower mid bass, your mid-range is starting to kind of boost and climb back up. So let's go to 30. So now you should definitely be able to hear that through the recording. But look, we're sitting here spiking out the deep stuff, and all of our high stuff is still pretty low flat. So all of this to say, they are not taking away bass as you turn the volume up. That is not what's happening. No. What they are doing is giving you more bass at low frequency or at low volume level. So that way, at low volume, you still have bass inside the mix.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why I'm such an advocate of, you know, keeping that factory active equalization. And this is not just a Dodge thing. Let's clarify this. This is a Chevy, Ford, Honda, Toyota, whoever thing. And it has been for a very, very long time. I noticed this first on my wife's 98 Accord. If I had the bass, back when they had little dials for bass, so I had the bass all the way up and it's cranking, I'm sitting here watching the rearview mirror bounce like, oh man, that's pretty cool. And then you turn the volume all the way up. Well, it's the same amount of vibration. It didn't vibrate more.
Yeah.
The bass just kind of plateaued and everything else came up to meet where the bass was.
Yep.
So this is not anything new.
No.
So super common in Dodges. If we were doing like higher end audio equipment, and somebody's like, no man, I really love the way my factory system sounds, I just really want to add more bass, then we typically use our harnesses that plug in and use the factory subwoofer signal. But if a customer was like, spending $3,000 on subs and amps and stuff, if we're doing like a $5,000 like a high end subwoofer package, then I'm doing the Amp Pro, because I'm like, they're getting the best equipment.
Yep.
I want to make sure they're getting the best audio signal.
Yep.
75% of the time, people would call back, hey, because they're, a lot of our customers come to us, so they're they pick up the car, we've got it cranked, and it's like rocking and jamming, and they're smiling, and everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
But then they go home, and they call me, and they're like, hey, how come I only have bass when I'm at high volume? When I put it back down to like 10 or 15, I don't have a whole lot of subwoofer. And it's because we were using the Amp Pro.
Yep.
So 3/4 of our customers were like, man, I wish I had done something different. We just did a system with a customer's a Pontiac G8 that she got. And her previous vehicle was a Ford Explorer something, and it had the factory Sony system.
Mm-hmm.
And they had same subs, same amp, just different vehicle. And so we took that equipment, put it in her G8, but this time we did a Kenwood radio and same amp, new speakers, same subs. And her complaint was, at low volume, I have no bass. She was used to the factory active EQ that her Ford system had, and now she missed it using a Kenwood radio, and at low volume, her subwoofers just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of a personal preference, but in our experience, we found a lot of people really prefer to have that factory EQ that's built in and functioning there. There's what I tell customers is some really smart guys with some really good equipment tuned to that sound system to all work as a package.
And PhDs. I mean, these guys.
Yes.
Yeah. It's these guys are in Detroit.
Yeah. PhDs. Exactly. This isn't some, nerdy audio, some engineer who's like, oh, let me, no, these are music enthusiasts.
Yeah.
They just happen to work for Dodge. Or they they probably work for Harman is who they work for.
Yeah,
and they're the ones coming in and doing the tuning. I don't know the specifics. So.
Yeah, no, there's a current world champion. He's been a world champion for years now. He's an engineer for the Harman Group in Detroit.
Yeah.
So he's kind of front line. I think he works on the Levinson systems specifically.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's in SQ and he kind of knows the back and forth of it.
In one of our professional groups, Ken Ward that I mentioned earlier, he came on and introduced, hey guys, I'm here with my friend Bob. I don't know his name, so I'm going with Bob. And Bob here, he works for Chevy and he helps design and set up the Bose systems. And of course, all the professionals come on like, oh, boo, Bose, ain't got highs, ain't got lows, must be Bose. They're all giving all the stupid, catchphrases and stuff. And then he's like, yeah, but I worked on this car and this car. And they're like, oh, no, never mind. Those cars actually sound really good. Hi, welcome. It really was kind of eye-opening to, first of all, hearing other professionals agree with what I was saying, which makes me feel good about, no, I thought that truck sounded good from the factory. Mm-hmm. But also recognizing that he was acknowledging, no, my cars sound good, these don't. I thought that was kind of funny, but that's when it was kind of like, no, this is like somebody's personal project. Anyway, I thought it was just funny that a Bose technician, or finding out that it is an actual, not an electrical engineer or, someone like that who's actually, designing these systems and just like, well, we got space, let's put a speaker here. It was nice to hear that there was some inside feedback on what they're
one
doing.
thing that the sound quality competitors right now, we all know about is like the new Cadillacs with Bose.
Yeah,
You can
with
sit in
like
any,
38 speakers or
yeah,
whatever it
you
has.
can
Yeah.
sit in any single seat in that vehicle, and you have a sound stage, and it's up, it's present, it's wide. I mean, it's really incredible.
Does that car have speakers in the ceiling for the back seats, or is it
Um,
like in?
I I believe it does, but don't catch me lying. I can't remember honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
like
see,
you said,
that's a
either
whole
way,
nother topic, and honestly, it's a topic I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on. Is
no,
when you
I just
start
think.
talking about all pass filters, because that's what they're using
I
to
mean,
correct for a lot of that stuff.
yeah, and I mean, just to touch on All Pass just for a second, it's not just them. It's the new
Yeah, yeah,
Chevys. New Chevys
yeah.
have it.
New
The
Chevys, new
Ford Broncos have
Toyotas.
it.
Yeah,
You know?
there's a reason why they said quit signal summing. Because with all pass it screws things up. But Toyota's been running all passes even on the base audios for, I don't know, 5 or 6 plus years.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very common thing, but that's a whole nother topic. I haven't
Oh yeah.
even, tested for them in these cars, but it's
Mhm.
because if we're doing a full system, we're doing an Amp Pro. So it
Yeah.
just gets rid of it.
Gets rid of it.
Like I said, that's a whole nother conversation to have.
Yeah.
All of this to say, active EQ is not a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of personal preference on what you're doing. If you are just adding a subwoofer and you're keeping all the rest of the factory sound system, factory tuning, and all that stuff, I would honestly tell you to keep it.
Yeah.
The only real reason to use an Amp Pro for just adding a sub on a premium system is if you're doing like an epicenter,
Mhm.
because the epicenters need it to play higher. You're supposed to actually feed an epicenter full range,
Yeah.
but with an Amp Pro, it's 250 and down, so it'll still function. If you're going to use it from the factory subwoofer signal, then where it keeps the active EQ, then using a bass restore from Wavetech would work better.
Yeah. That's a good one.
The bass restore is made to work from roughly 80 to 100 hertz down, and it can still recreate that upper bass for you. So it
Yeah.
kind of works backwards from the way the epicenter does. That's another conversation to get into.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I like how you put it. So, I mean, going back to the RTA results, right? So, what the thing I noticed was when you're at 13, you're at low volume.
it's super bassy.
It
Yeah.
is super bassy, but it's also traditional and in sound quality, what we call the Harman curve.
Yep.
That's the traditional Harman curve. You're going to get a bump over in bass. You're going to flatten up around mid, and then you're going to go down a little bit towards
Hmm.
20K. But what I
Yeah.
noticed was as you cranked it up, the bass we talked about bass, but what the other thing that was happening was somewhere around the upper mid. It looked like it was maybe 1K to 2K.
Yeah. There were
You
a couple
started
other
seeing
smaller
you
humps.
started
Yeah.
seeing a spike in that, and
Yeah.
then you saw another one on down the road, probably 5K,
Typically
maybe a
about
little higher.
4K.
Yeah,
Yeah. Typically about 4K. 1K is we just hear a lot there.
yeah.
4K gives it a little bit of warmth.
It gives it warmth and it
To
gives it
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
So
So again, signs that someone who knows what the heck they're doing is
exactly.
sitting here engineering this sound system. But I've said from day one, people come in the groups and are like, "My Harman system sucks. It's got no bass." Like, they are very bass heavy from the factory.
Yeah,
Now, does it have enthusiast levels of bass? No. They're never
yeah,
going to put two 12s and 1,000 watts on a factory sound system. That does nothing for fuel mileage, and probably 95% of the people out there would not want that in their car.
yeah.
So, there is never going to be a factory premium system that's going to be at enthusiast levels.
No, no, and I think
So,
I think that's the thing the owner needs to understand is like you might be the exception if this is the way you think.
correct.
Not
Yeah.
everybody wants a ton of bass. I'm still in their camp though. I mean, immediately I was like, all right, I don't have enough bass in this truck. This is way before I got into SQ, and it was like, all right, I can build sub
Your truck had
I can
Alpine
install.
from the factory?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, Alpine.
Okay.
So it was. I mean, same thing. It was like, all right, I need way more bass than this, and then just kind of got it as I got stuck into it and more into it. Yeah, it's
Rabbit
all right.
hole.
Let's design a
Yeah.
full system around it. Let's bump the mid bass now, and let's
Yeah.
just go crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's proof. Like the curve that we saw is proof that they are doing good things over in Detroit and thinking about this the right way, giving you good linearity. You're getting um, good response across the curve, and the relationship on the curve, I think, is right. Yeah, if you want more bass at low volumes, then I think that they figured that out.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to me that looked good. I mean, it's interesting. It's always fun to see data.
Well, and
That's all it
that's
is.
just it. That's why I collect RTA images. Is
Yeah.
people again, in how many times? And I think we talked about this in a previous post. How many times have you seen people? I've got the Alpine system, and I tapped into the rear door speaker. Like, first
Mm-mm.
of all, taking those B pillars off is an absolute pain in the butt.
I hated it.
Those are the toughest clips in the whole world,
I
and you
hated
have
it.
to replace half of them.
Yes.
Why would you go through all that to catch a door speaker signal when you have a factory subwoofer you can tap into?
I know why.
But then you argue, it's old school thought. It's
It is.
completely just the super old school. This is what I did in my truck 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is a brand new vehicle. And then you show them an RTA response saying, look, the back door doesn't even play bass.
Yep.
I could pull that image up right now and show you.
Yeah.
It does not play bass. And then they're like, well, why does it sound like crap? It's because you're not feeding it a subwoofer signal. Mm-hmm. So why would it act like that? Now, if you had the base audio system where you just had everything running off the radio, no factory amp, no
Mm-hmm.
subwoofer, well, fine, tap in there. If you want to get it there, go there. But there's so many other easier places. No, I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't do rear. I would still do fronts. Fronts play more musical information than the rears. Correct. And a lot more actually if you really break it down. So
yes,
if you're going to tap off of a speaker, like a pair of speaker wires, the myth of rear, I think, is because people think that bass comes from the back because naturally we've always had a pair of 12s behind us.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's they're so used to doing backyard installs and on their buddies Honda Civic and Toyota, they just grab the rear speakers at the rear deck.
Oh yeah, off the
off the back. They just take their wires and twist them around the tinsel leads. That's I think that's kind of the old school backyard
Can't
mentality.
say I haven't
Not
done
that there's anything wrong
Buick.
with that.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
I haven't.
I did it in high school.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I never did that. I don't know.
You were just smart right out of the gate.
I was. I was born. I was born in this.
Born in this.
Yeah. Just with solder in hand.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, no. Anyway, that'd give my mom lead poisoning or something weird like that. So, anyway, we're getting off topic.
Anyway, so, you're gonna tap off the front. Right. It's a better idea. Don't tap off the rear.
And so let's back up. We are talking about premium audio systems here, but the base audio systems do the same thing.
Yeah,
just not to the same extent.
No.
They don't have as big of that spike on the bass side, but it's the exact same thing where the bass is up here and the vocals come and catch up. It's not like, it's people look at, like I said, they look at it backwards and they see it. Oh, I'm turning the volume up and they're taking away my bass. Like, it's not doing that. It's the vocals are catching up to the bass in most applications. And the whole point of this video, which I hope people will see, is the fact of just us saying the mentality needs to shift.
Mm-hmm.
I think that RTAs have become such a hot tool and they've become so much cheaper. I bought an oscilloscope, full color display, oscilloscope, multimeter, 2-channel input, all this crazy stuff. It was like $90. Like, dude, my first super cheap oscilloscope was like $300, and it's so cheap. It's like, so all these tools are so readily available. RTAs are so much more readily available and so much less expensive. I think my first audio control RTA was like $1,500. And at the time it was oh my gosh, I don't have the money for this. But I had done a job where if I had it, it would have saved me so much time.
Yep.
If I had it to analyze the factory sound system.
Yeah.
So I just had to, and I was at a professional point. I was doing this on my own. I was not at the big box. But now you have tools. You can buy a $100 microphone from Audio Frog.
Yep.
You can use Roam EQ and do it free software.
Yeah,
even if you pay for the updates, it's like $20 or something. Like, it's not expensive for getting the better quality version.
Yeah.
And now you can actually see, you can test, you can visually see what's going on with your factory sound system.
Yep.
Even if I was a DIYer and I had been doing this for 20 years, at this point, after seeing all of this stuff, I would have still bought this equipment.
Yeah. So
it's so readily available.
Yeah. Case in point, right? So I have my laptop here. I've got the Mini DSP UMIC 1, and it's about the same price as Andy's from Audio Frog. And I'm using Room EQ Wizard. And then I have DSP software for whatever DSP I'm tapping into. And then luckily I have a buddy that has a Max Tune from JL, so we can kind of get into it there. But I have everything I need to evaluate what a system is doing for 100 to 150 bucks.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
It like I said, it does not have to be that expensive.
Mm-mm.
The DMRTA is nice because we can feed
Yep.
like massive signal into it, which
Yep.
we'll show on another video. So it has some extra capabilities,
Yeah.
but and even it's you can still find those for, I think, aren't they like $600, $500?
Something like that. You could
They
also do a sound card like on a laptop and then get a
correct. Yeah.
microphone that
Yeah.
measures impulse response, and that's how you do
Yeah.
timing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking,
Yeah,
another
there's a
100,
bunch of
150
different
bucks.
circuits.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah. So it's just more chords. The
Yeah.
DMRTA is nice because it's all in one.
Yeah.
We just have ours built in because we can very easily, pull and check stuff
Yeah.
if we're doing a sound system, and that's other things to even talk about,
Hmm.
where we can, talk about the little secrets of fine tuning if you
Hmm.
have a EQ, a RTA, even on just a subwoofer system. There
Yeah.
are things you can do
Yeah.
that are not super expensive.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just feel like with the prevalence and accessibility of these tools, as a professional, people need to be looking at this stuff and saying, "Oh man, that's actually how this works," or "I didn't
Right.
know that." Like the moment you quit learning in this industry is the moment you start dying, and
Hmm.
I just get frustrated at professionals who are not putting forth the legwork to continue to improve themselves.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I've gone to advanced tuning classes from Mark Eldridge over in
yeah.
Tulsa. I think he's actually moving down your way. And in those classes, I mean, Bobby Gately was in one of them. He flew out from Sacramento,
Hmm.
and then you've got some other folks that were either regional or across the country. So it's other shops that are still they're educating, right? And I think
Right.
now
Yeah.
more than ever, especially you're fighting all pass. You're fighting these OEM systems that have
Mhm.
up mixers now. You can
Yeah.
there's an up mixer I think in the
Well,
Gold.
again, we're talking about RTAs, but
Yeah,
the relevance of an
knowing.
RTA,
Yeah,
not an RTA, a DSP.
yeah,
DSPs have become. I mean, if you're talking about mini DSP, you can get a super capable DSP for a couple $100.
yeah,
I mean, you can get a very capable DSP from other name brand manufacturers for $300 or $400.
yep,
Arc Audio just came out with a new one
yeah. I saw that.
that is a 6 to 8 or a 6 to 10.
I think it's a 6 to 8.
I think, and it's still going to be super loaded, super flexible, and it's like $600. I was
Mhm.
like, man, that's fantastic, especially compared to a PS8 Pro. This is like $1,200.
Yeah,
But for most customers, that's all they need.
yeah,
That still may even be
absolutely.
more than they need,
Yeah,
but it gives you the control that's there. So with the prevalence of DSPs comes RTAs, but if you don't know how to use either one of them, if you don't know how the system works, if you don't know how the system works, you can't wire it up
if you can't, yeah,
in
if you
order to
can't,
make it do what it's supposed to
yeah,
do.
if you can't read what the system is doing as you're making changes to the DSP, why bother? Because you can over
Right.
EQ it. You can miss some pretty critical information about like where an all
Man, I
pass
can't
filter
get
might
this
exist.
20K up high enough. It just won't change. And then they just pull it way up and it just makes everything distort.
Yeah,
There's still tricks to it all,
yeah,
but still, it's just kind of a shift in the industry as far
it is.
as the availability of knowledge. People in groups like this, and they hear those words and they think, oh, we need this. But and I'm all for it. Like
Mhm.
DIY, absolutely, I'm all for it. But I tell everybody that a DSP is a fantastic tool to make great equipment sound like crap,
Mhm.
or to damage great equipment. Because if you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah.
then you can very easily, accidentally you have your system cranked full bore before setting the crossovers, and you just smoked a tweeter.
Yep.
I mean,
There are steps, and
there's
and if you
absolutely
don't, yeah,
steps. Yeah.
I think with DSP, I think the first thing, and I'll give another shout out to Andy Waymeyer over at Audio Frog.
Hmm.
So you can go to his site, you can download his white paper. You're gonna have to love to read like you were in school because it's over 100 page
And
white paper.
Andy is like,
He's way up there, right? And he doesn't even
yeah,
Andy.
he's super
Andy is
super
not.
smart, but he's very very outgoing.
Yeah, and he's also an old
You know,
Harman engineer. He was at Harman for
yes,
20, 25 years.
something like that. Yeah.
But what Andy does is he breaks down not only how to tune, but what you're actually listening for. So it's the perfect white paper for a DIYer that is ready to read and learn and not just turn on the device and start cranking knobs.
Yeah.
If
Oh, but
you're
this one has auto tune, man. It's gonna do it all for me.
okay, oh, so it's a kicker key in here. Um,
Yeah.
but no, it's a process. DSP is not something any DIYer should just jump into. My suggestion is find a friend that's a professional. I got kind of lucky as I got into it with Joseph Norton being close to me. But you definitely need to have guidance if you're going to try the DSP thing. That being said, don't be scared of it. It's a good tool
Right.
if you do it right. It's a great tool if you do it right. Um, I know a lot of trucks, a lot of these exact Rams. So myself, Austin, Eric Ruth, I've heard Brian Fleming's, quite a few other guys that are in the group that have DSP and they sound amazing.
Right.
But it's either a professional did it or these guys took the time to learn how to read what's going on, how to react to it, and then how to read what changed, and then so on and so forth. So
Right. Yeah.
it takes a long time to tune it right, but it's worth it.
Yeah. It's definitely something you get out of it. We're totally off topic.
We're way
so,
off topic.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna call it quits on this one, and we can definitely hit on that topic more later.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good video down the road.
If we want to talk about, beginners tips and tricks, starting points and stuff like that, it'd be easy to talk about.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess that's it, and we'll catch y'all in the next round, and we will hit up another topic, hopefully that y'all like. If you have questions or if you have topics you want to talk about, hit us in the comments. Find us on the groups and talk to us.
Yep.
And we're wanting to do this. We're wanting to talk and try to help people. So if you have a topic that you want to have, some insight on, let us know, and we'll definitely help you out as our schedules allow. So, catch you later.
See you, buddy.